Mike and Qrash.
Hi,
I
Mike.
got to be careful. Being trash cats catching up, and I wind up talking myself out.
Yeah.
But we're going to bring you the third part of the series with the racetracks, and it was important, more important than I think you understand. So I'm just going to do a brief synopsis of what you're going to see, and just mention what's going on briefly thereafter. But what you were seeing is even connected to everything that's happening now. Our last podcast, what did we tell you? The emergency, the urgency was that we are going broke. That's the 76 cents. That's must. That's bankruptcy. That's the urgency. They weren't telling you the truth because, again, they stole the money. So, again, you've got to find the money. But in an emergency situation, you increase revenue and you reduce expenses. Those are both of those things are coming down, going down at the same time. This was no accident, but don't let it be a black swan. Me and Qrash talked about this, and we're going to say more about that later. But not an event to have Trump be vulnerable again. The Department of Justice is still in this game. Flynn's still in this game. So is the Department of Justice. I'm saying, watch the flip on Trump. Watch. Now, Trump still's got to stand up and start arresting some of these people and attack the DOJ because that's clearly who's behind all of this. They are fighting for their lives, and so are we. Why do you think that this is so important? I'll get into what we're showing you with the racetracks. It is an enormous money laundering operation. If they stole 36, and I think we're up to 37 trillion, how'd they clean it? How'd they hide it? Isn't that the next question? We're looking for Mount Everest. That's how big this laundering network's going to be. Say it's going to be racetracks that are across the country, casinos, like Wynn casinos across the country. You mean the same casinos and racetracks that work with the mob? Are you saying the mob's still there? That's who I found. That's what you found in those videos on these podcasts on the horse racing, right? Married to the mob, the wires that are going from the mob, from strip joints, from racetracks to politicians to judges. That's how they use the dark money to bribe and pay. That's what you saw in Tied to the Tracks. You could hit that one, Qrash. I want you to go back to those videos. We didn't show you all of them. Tied to the Tracks. What did you find out? That the DOJ and the FBI was protecting it and blocking that investigation. All right? That was the cartel. Now, listen, this is important. What I didn't know was who the cartel was at that moment. So when you're seeing this, you can hit the next one with the bad luck. What you're seeing is I'm seeing this cartel into Pennsylvania. I'm seeing them even you here on that with the illegal licensing. That Numia Bombadilla, that's the identifier. They would turn around and license Mexican cartels that would come in with the hay trucks, that would come in with the horses, that would live on the backside. That's human trafficking. That's drug distribution, protected by the state. Now, listen, this is the point we can't miss. Okay, you can take that down, Qrash. Where did it take us? Of all the places, if you want to talk about bad luck, God puts me in New Hampshire and they push the gates of hell there too with the laundry network. I'm racing in Pennsylvania, and guess where that cartel is connected to? And they're building this laundry network for New
Yeah.
Hampshire. Are you kidding me? You want to talk about that God played a bad trick? Think about this. That was Ted Little that you saw tied to the tracks, right? You saw it goes, Pincus and Pollux, my lawyer, and the Blood Horse magazine blasting me, and they were throwing the case because it was all fixed. Again, and the Department of Justice and the FBI, because it was the laundering network that we found goes back to New Hampshire. That was Ted Little. That was Pincus and Pollock. Now think about this. We traveled out to New Hampshire. Do you remember those wires? When we said we said mafia alive and well. We showed you the wire transfers from Wynn Casino. Steve Wynn resigned. We saw that they came from the mafia. Mafia Costa Nostra in New England, buying Wynn Casino, selling Wynn Casino's property. Front page of the Boston Globe. And the woman that was married to one of the heads of the mafia was a plant inside my office. You want a movie? You give me one that's that. That plant, you know how I meet her? She was the victim of the mob. Oh, and then she gets a job with Kerry Lemieux. Now you're going to remember now the last one was Married to the Mob, the deposition with Shannon Donnelly, that mole. That Kerry Lemieux's the one who gave my location up right after that to be murdered. That's that video you'll see. No room service, no shit. They'll send a 6'7" Russian or Ukrainian to murder your ass. But for him now, from Married to the Mob, right? That deposition. I refused the 50,000, 25 from Liberty. Liberty was the state of New Hampshire, the banking department, the IRS. 25 from Penn. You know what the counteroffer would have been? You already offered me 50. I'll take the 50 from Liberty, the 25 from Penn. That's 75 million. That's the deal. And that's what they had on the table. And I told them to go fuck themselves. And you see me do it to Bill Barrington. You see the emails, the texts going back and forth that I'm not taking the money and that they offered 50 again.
And who was Barrington?
Barrington was a lawyer that I had. It was flipped.
Okay.
That was working with Lemieux. After Barrington, Lemieux was working with Brian Toomey, the one of the heads of my company.
And Lemieux worked for you as well, right?
Yeah, she was the paralegal.
Yeah,
paralegal. Did what Erin Day and Eileen Landy did previously. Blocked the investigation, corrupted, gave up witnesses. Kerry Lemieux gave my location where I was to be in Florida, meeting with the Mortgage Association. It was a setup to be murdered.
Okay.
I just got up and I saw that door handle move. But from there, and you can hear that, when I got back, I told Brian Toomey what happened. He broke down sobbing. And he said that that Kerry Lemieux gave up my address and set it up for me to be murdered. That was me meeting the cartel. I hadn't met them yet. But when I traced this Penn National to New Hampshire, that was the death sentence when I said no in that Married to the Mob. You're seeing those steps that I didn't know who the cartel and what happened then after Married to the Mob, after No Room Service, Erin Day comes knocking. James O'Keefe come knocking, and they go, here are the names of the heads of the mob. They knew who I was on. That's the deposition. Now listen, people, that's a sworn deposition. That recording is the legal recording for that deposition. That is used as evidence.
And that's in this video, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then that from No Room Service. And you'll see how No Room Service, they covered up trying to murder me, including the Miami police. There was videotapes. The feds have the videotapes of me fighting with this asshole in the hallway for 10 minutes. Security and the Miami police. And you hear recordings of me talking to the Miami police. All right. But understand what you're seeing all here. This is the money laundering network. And as far as we go back to New Hampshire. That's the same 935 trillion they moved to New Hampshire. That's Pandora Papers. Do you know what these tariffs are trying to save the country? 700 trillion. You still are not at 935 trillion from the drug cartels and the child traffickers and those filthy politicians that sold us out on those deals. Is there a reason why we can't grab their ass and their money at the same time? Assets.
Right.
It's a simple process. All right. Now, There's a couple of clips that I pulled out, and this was from ESPN. Now, I remember now, well, I want to set this up. Who tried to stop us? ESPN. E60. That was the #1 show on television. HBO canceled the series? And then ESPN Radio, a gentleman you're going to hear named Roger Stein. And Roger was a good man. And he's one of the most knowledgeable men in racing that I've ever met. He knew what I was saying was true, but he couldn't say it until he was dying. And he died shortly after that. And he told the truth because he knew the situation. They weren't going to do anything to him. So he called it out and he said that I told you. So he knew, and he even knew about the immigration thing. He knew about the fixed racing. And he went out there and told people. And that ESPN radio, these cuts that you're going to hear from, was the highest rated ESPN radio show in history. And they had me on for the next 3 Saturdays in a row. This clip here. Okay, Qrash.
Okay, I'm gonna set this up.
Right. There's no special effects here if you're looking for them.
Right, yeah, exactly. And if you need to stop it, tell me to pause it, and
Yeah,
I'll do my best.
See, that's our secret code. Ready? The secret word is stop. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
Dared bring on, and not just that. We didn't just give them a voice. We didn't laugh at them. We listened. Like, how about this? How about Mike Gill? How about all the people that wish they would have had the balls to put him on when we did, and let him have at it? And people going, is he crazy? No, he wasn't crazy. Guess what? Everybody else was. And so I went back to the well one time more. And I called my friend Mike Gill and I said, Mike, I'm not doing so hot. Can you help me out and do a little radio? And he said, sure. So we called him and he's here. Michael Gill. Good morning, my friend. Roger, it's nice to hear from you. Mike, we read about Pennsylvania. It's almost never good. I guess there's other ways to say that. They keep in the news. They got all kinds of deals going on. And you know the question of the week, Mike? I know this will make you laugh, even though very little to laugh about some days. Murray Rojas. The quiz would go, who is Murray Rojas? Everyone thinks Murray Rojas is a guy. But that's just not true. Now, the ante continues to go up. The firms looking to make a deal now are willing to put up over $5 million. This is how bad it's gotten. You said it was going to happen, Mike. It just took some patience. What's the latest, Mike? What's going on back there?
Well, what it took was a new administration. That was part of it. The reason why this has been going on, I wrote in a narrative in 2010, I could have wrapped the whole thing up in 2 weeks. And this corruption would have went through. Even the politicians in the state of Pennsylvania. You know, we had a time bomb from the beginning. We had a starving racetrack. And the people on that racetrack learned to cheat to live. It's just how, when you run for $1,800 or $3,000 a pot, trust me, that's how they're all surviving. Then you put corrupt politicians, and then the power of casino gambling, and there it was. It was a package that was ready to explode. Now, what I caught was in 2010, I brought to the FBI. They knew I nailed it down, and you know what happened? They found out the depth of the corruption, and they started covering up rather than arresting these people. So why 7 years? Because I exposed 2 of their cover-ups.
You there, Mike? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Was that the end of the clip?
that was the end of that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't sure if I was still waiting for more.
Well, you have another clip, but I didn't play
Oh,
it.
I do, but I want to talk about this one. All right, now listen. What is the rhyme and reason of all of what I've figured out and found? Is that I'm stopped by the FBI and the DOJ each and every time. Now, how is that possible if you don't understand who the enemy is now? The DOJ sells protection. The FBI are the extortionists, they're the arm of that protection. They threaten the whistleblowers. So, what am I at this point with Roger? We're turning around. It is true. All what I was doing. And what did they do? They got us the low level people. They don't get you the politicians that I spoke of. And
Right.
who was
They get the
protecting
low
it?
hanging fruit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the screen. That's what's happening now, by the way. It's just that they're going to give you something big like a drug cartel. I mean, listen, they're out there cutting up this drug cartel like it's the last sandwich on earth.
Right.
Okay? So, in other words, somebody knows something. And it is the way in, as I said. But again, it's still the cover of you not getting everything. This thing when racing, the FBI and DOJ, why was it important to them? It's money laundering. Where did all this laundering with the cartel and immigration was feeding into? New Hampshire again? And remember that Pandora's Papers was foreign money coming in. The only companies that were mentioned were the ones I mentioned: the Auto Fair, Granite State Recovery, Prospective Trust, Dartmouth Hospital. They were mentioned domestically. Those were the names that I've gave. Those were the names that sued me for Auto Fair.
They're on the settlement, right?
Right. Granite State Recovery, that's where Pence was meeting Anagos. They're on it. And what happens with Cruz from Auto Fair? He runs the lottery, money laundering again, gambling. You know who runs the casinos, licensing? Andy Cruz from the cartel. You know who owns them? The cartel. You mean casinos? What did I just give you? The racetracks and the largest racetracks and casinos in the country. How's that? Everybody's money laundering because they're laundering Mount Everest. And who's involved? Everybody. There's all bad guys and the politicians and the judges. These restaurants in Pennsylvania was next to the courthouse. Those judges would go across the street to eat and gamble and get paid off. And we caught those wire transfers. So the wire transfers from Penn National took us into New Hampshire too, with the state police, into Massachusetts with the mob. Wouldn't Steve win for him to resign? I mean, Jesus, we couldn't even write this. All right, let's hit the second clip.
Okay. And there was a lot of like police involved as well. You know, the authorities, right? Were there a lot?
They all got busted.
Yeah.
All the heads of the mob. Right. And
Wow.
let's not forget the guy on the it's called HBPA. It's the Horsemen's Benevolent Society, but he was one of my moles. They drowned him in a river.
Right. That's right.
During him, right. They murdered this kid. I think he was like 21.
Wow.
But that's how, and listen, who's going to investigate? The FBI, DOJ? You see me running after them with evidence.
Right.
I'm running after them. They're locking the doors. I'm knocking on the doors, hitting the loudspeakers. I know you're in there. Now, we've all seen me do that. So what the hell do I have that scares the shit out of the FBI? And I told you what one agent said to me that one time. You scare the FBI more than bin Laden.
And you gave all this stuff. I mean, the DOJ is covering this all up yet, right? I mean,
yes, that's what Flynn's using.
Right.
Listen, this is a blackmailing nightmare.
Exactly.
That's why even Santelli goes, you're going to be weaponized. Listen, why do you think even ESPN won't say a word? Could have sued the shit out of them.
Right.
This wasn't about making money with a lawsuit. It was about finding your money. And listen, everything that's happening now is because you're broke and they stole your money. Now, if taking your money back isn't the first priority, I don't know what it is.
Right.
Because if we snatch their money back, and every time we wait, right? You know what they're doing? Moving money, moving
Yeah.
assets. That's all this time in between. They're preparing not to be found. Okay,
Right.
Qrash.
Okay.
What's next, Mike? What's going to happen here? I mean, look, this has been going on for a while. You made so many predictions, and so many of them have come true. What's going to happen? Why are they still racing? And who's going to go down? I mean, let's face it, somebody's going to have to take the rap here.
Well, I'll tell you what. I can tell you exactly if they play it right to the end. Now, it is potentially that I think they have to, and they look like they're committed to doing this now for their own sake. See, now the feds are going to protect themselves. So this is what I believe. You're going to see multiple trainers, Stacy, Todd Beatty, the HPPA. Let's not forget, I had a witness in the HPPA. Remember what happened to that witness? He wound up drowned in a river. Right. In like November. So what you're going to do is you're going to see now them getting into the HPA. Then you're going to see them getting into the ownership and management of Penn National. You're going to see the basis of these people are organized crime. That was the principal ownership. So you're going to see this riddle back through to the casino. You're going to see multiple trainers, more than you can imagine. And then from those trainers, you will get corrupt politicians and public officials and judges. If they keep rolling this back, and that's what's going to save racing. And it might just save a few souls.
Do you really believe that he's going to clean up racing, at least in Pennsylvania?
Yes. It'll be like dominoes. Because it's not just all Pennsylvania. You can start by some of these small tracks. You put this when we had offshore gaming. You can't give those kind of people that kind of incentive and expect them not to take it. So I do. I think it'll have a rippling effect. I think it's also the administration. I can tell you this. I've been in communications with Trump's people for a year and a half. And he is using my stuff. I called the fixed Senate race. He just went to the public with it within days.
What's next, Mike? What's going?
Okay, Qrash. So I line them up. I set them up. All they do is the FBI and the DOJ's got to arrest them. And guess what? There's the fly in the ointment. Even then, I didn't understand. I was running into complications with the FBI and DOJ. But even then, it was after what was going on in New Hampshire with the feds in New England. So in other words, I've got both things going. And if you hear me also say I was working with Trump's people already a year and a half, this was in the 15. I was giving Lewandowski. I was saying what it was, which is why Trump was going out and saying New Hampshire's a drug-infested den. And Sununu hated that. Who do you think was giving him all that shit? The same time, I'm in court with the cartel. I get the largest fentanyl seizure in history. I got Trump's face on my signs and the cartels. He didn't get noticed? Jesus. So, in other words, I keep setting this up. I got the racing. And this is what I was saying was going to be like dominoes. It is like this. Because if we track their money, we go into those New Hampshire, we go into those LLCs, we go into that laundering network, and we get everybody. Then it goes back to Pennsylvania. But what are they buying? What was I saying then? Judges. Are we not in court now? Isn't the question in court now? Are these judges corrupt? Hello?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's exactly. And what was their last line of defense? The courts. Who did we find out that was the head of this deep state, this corruption, which is our government? The Department of Justice, the DOJ. Who is behind Flynn? The DOJ, the insurrection, Arizona. We don't know the enemy. Who was I telling you the enemy in 15? And 13 and 14, I'm saying, listen, it's these assholes right here. I'm knocking on the door, and they're not coming out. I bring a sandwich in a lounge chair and a soda, sit there for 4 fucking hours. No one left the building. I should have bought 2 sandwiches. No kidding. I had to go to the bathroom is how the day ended. I should have brought 1 West Coke, I think. But my point being is this. I identified the enemy. And here they are again. That's Jack Smith. That's DOJ. And Bill Shaheen, who's the lawyer for these cartels, where blind man knows that. What does the cartel own? Casinos, strip clubs, auto fair? I mean, Jesus Christ, it's Ozark, Mary, Scarface, and you come up with an Anagos. Oh, and don't throw in Whitey Bulger. It's the same assholes. Shaheen was U.S. attorney during Bulger. He worked for the Sullivan. They protected Aganos as they protected Bulger. Aganos just got away and built a fucking empire. That's what's driving it. It bought a Pence.
Yeah.
That's what that was buying. It brought a Haley in. Haley moved to New Hampshire. That's Sununu. Sununu was sitting on the war chest, sitting on the box of secrets. And now Ayotte would have been the exact move to replace that. You see? Perfect. If we're watching things by movement, there's nothing out of line here.
Right, they're all in play.
You're broke, and they're trying to flip. I talked to Qrash. What you're going to see is a black swan event. Now, remember these pinheads when they were telling you Trump was commander-in-chief while Biden was president? And that Trump opened the borders. I've had fights on the air with KFC, Terry Cassidy.
CBD code. Nobody knows who KFC is. Well,
see,
I mean,
I'm hoping to change
if they don't
that.
know you, if they don't know you.
And I can't go to KFC. You have seen the prices over there? I can't do it.
You don't want to eat that.
But my point being is this. They opened the borders, black swan events, millions of people. I said 5 million, 6, 7 million. It's a lesson. Trump was teaching us a lesson. That would have been the spin job for Flynn. This thing with the market is the spin job. Trump's not telling you why. Musk isn't telling you why. I mean, this fucking hint and shit. I can't stand it. Hey, listen, we're going bankrupt. Musk. Is that bad? I don't know. Is that bad? What would you do?
Just explain what you, because see, a lot of people that are new watching you might not understand what happened there. The FCBD code, he's another podcaster. He had, you were on a show with him, and he was doing the thing Q people do, is say, Trump is CIC, and he told everybody that Trump opened the borders to teach us a lesson. So
yes.
the way you're describing it, it sounds like you agree. In a way, because the way
No. I questioned him on his beliefs and said, "Do you believe Trump's commander-in-chief?" Yes, I do.
Said yes.
Do you believe the borders that he'll? Yes, I did. Oh, if somebody 6, 7 million people, how do you explain that to the people that Trump did that? Oh, well, he was teaching them a lesson.
Right.
That's a quote right through. Right. That's because these assholes were programmed that way to flip on Trump with something like a black swan event. Now. With this economy, they're lined up 6 ways to Sunday. We got Stu Peters that can't shut up. Trump's killing babies. And he's the same Stu Peters that Kash Patel denied knowing in Congress, yet he was on his show 8 times. I mean, is this shit getting weird here?
Yeah.
And why him? And watch the rest of them start lining up. They're going, hey, you know what? He's crashing the economy. Qrash and I have been looking at that. In fact, that might be another one coming up. And it's saying he's doing it on purpose. He's crashing the economy. Right. Only the rich people are going to get hurt. Hey, listen, ready? When you go into a recession, it's not the rich people that get hurt. Do you know I didn't know the price of gas? I hadn't been in a grocery store in 20-something years. They don't get hurt. You get hurt. You get hurt because that little that you do have, you lose a little of that, makes a difference. So in other words, how many times did I said there's Wall Street and there's Main Street, and you are Main Street, and don't confuse them. They were paying that those losses and those trade deals. You were making up the difference. You were paying trade balances and debts, borrowed money for your children, borrowed money, trillions that we cannot make up overnight. And even now, Trump's saying with Navarro saying today, he goes, well, he's going to have American manufacturing is going to come up and we're going to have new jobs. Right. That'll take about 3 to 5 years. So if you think someone's throwing you a life jacket, get over it. Because you've got to build steel companies. You've got to build aluminum companies.
It's going to take time. Yeah.
You're damn straight.
Yeah.
So in other words, and I saw that today. So I know that's straight up bullshit and horse shit. You're going to be saved. You're not going to be saved that way. I'm going to tell you how you save. You save, right? Listen, by taking their fucking life jacket. They stole your money, get it back. Is it that hard for us to find $36 trillion? I mean, this whole thing with the tariffs is for what, 700 trillion? 935 trillion in New Hampshire from cartels, and we're not going to look where it went because it went on top of your trillions too. Listen, all I can tell you is there's somewhere someone saying that you can't handle the truth. I'm hearing Jack Nicholson. I mentioned that to Qrash today too.
Yeah.
You can't handle the truth. Right. You won't believe it. And then if you do, they're frightened shitless that something's going to happen to them because they sold you out. That Senator Menendez connected to Egypt. They gave him 11 years. Audit every senator and congressman, the whole House, the whole Senate. Listen, we can do it in 3 days. Cheap. Senate's only got 100 crooks. Republicans and Democrats, listen, we don't have favorites. But we get them. We find out what those deals that went with those other countries, those got paid off here in the Senate and the Congress. So listen, there's ways of getting them. I just showed you we got the largest casinos in this country, and their wire service is laundering money for drug cartels and paying off politicians and judges using those wires. You saw the actual wires.
Is Wynn Casinos still in operation?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
They may be the largest.
Okay.
Right. But that's how big this is.
Right. That's what I was going to say. This
Steve
is weird.
Wynn resigned. You know why Steve Wynn resigned? Here's the first rule. When you open that door, if there's more to be found, you resign so they don't end any investigation. If you would have connected with Wynn Casino and gone into the money laundering network, you'd have found every corrupt politician in this country and drug cartel. That's where it ends there. And that's why they tried to murder my ass, and that was the first time. That's why room service. The whole thing was a setup from beginning to end.
Yep.
And again, look where it was. We're in Pennsylvania. We're in New Hampshire. It's the same Sinaloa cartel. It's the same Pandora's box laundering network. I mean, we're talking national. And national, I think, it's got 8 casinos in Mississippi alone.
Oh, wow.
And if they're fixing the races, you don't think they're fixing sports games? You'd be wrong.
And the lottery and the casinos, they're all rigged.
All right. How about this? New Hampshire, right? Andy Cruz gives the check away. You know who hands the check out? Bill Shaheen.
Shaheen, yeah.
Are you shitting me? And the check usually starts with 600 million.
Yeah.
Million. They do it in chunks. Hey, listen, let's put the lottery, let's put the cartel, one of the heads, and charge him with running the lottery, and he's responsible for the casinos. I mean, how do you not find this asshole? So if they tell you they're not getting at the cartel, listen, we got a MS-13, we got this guy, and we got this guy. Oh, so they arrested 3 people. All right, well, we got the largest cartel. Right. They own Planet fucking Fitness across the country, laundering distribution. How about that? If you pull the guy's police record, the guy's been arrested more than Capone. All right? So now his real records. Listen, I heard the tapes. I heard the recording. You see this asshole, Chris Pappas, the representative from New Hampshire, who's running for senator? He's on the tapes from the DEA and the state police in his father's kitchen with Anagos and drug deals. Welcome to the Senate.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you got Shaheen and Hassan that are owned by the cartel. How much of the Senate and the Congress are owned by the cartel? Listen, who's got all the money? They do.
They do. Yeah.
And the cartel's allies are your politicians, are your the wealth of this world. They're in that family now. Drugs happen to be a prominent fixture in the global economy. And
Yes.
it's just blood
Normal.
of your children. Right.
Right.
And you know, they were all robbing this country. Part of that indebtedness, that is Medicaid expansion. That is you paying the drug cartels to addict your children. When they go to rehab, they own the rehab. They turn around and overbill for treatments and cheap Medicaid expansion and use the treatment center as a drug distribution center. That's the asshole on Kill Gill that got arrested. He was running the Granite State Recovery, and he was one of the cartel heads.
Yeah.
Amen. See, and it's always stealing from you. And family court, and I'll leave you with this, just stealing. Oh, they're stealing from Social Security. They're matching funds for child support, taking your children and charging that matching your child support. And the states are giving it to those people, those judges, the sheriffs, the bailiffs. Everybody gets a bonus from stealing your kids.
Right.
That's the Sununu Youth Detention Center with 1,100 children beaten and raped. And you know who covered it up? A.G. Ayotte. You know who's governor now? Ayotte.
Yeah. It's sickening.
I mean, this is
sickening.
This is by the numbers. It's not that I'm some fortune teller. It's direct. We're out of options. And listen, the closer we get to this edge, the more obviously it's got to be to you. And that's the thing that fears me, the thing with Flynn. If Flynn's still here, the motion, the plan, if he turns around and wrangles these minions of pinheads together, creating another insurrection, spin on Trump with the economy, blame Trump for turning around and starting the economy like it's the big plan, and that could be the black swan event. Listen, crashing the country's economy is not good. It jeopardizes us. The strength of our country has been the wealth of this country. Now we can get there again, and I agree. How's he doing? But he's got to. President Trump's got to tell you, you can handle the truth. You're going to have to, because you ain't you. Think of the lies that they told you, even about Trump being commander in chief, about the military. What have we found out about the military?
Yeah, are there still military to come and I guess save us? I don't know. I mean,
yeah, what are we going to keep following airplanes now?
He still probably is. I don't even look.
Yeah. Listen, this is pretty much common sense. We're a country made up of capitalists that turned out to be greedy, evil bastards. And everywhere you could steal from the American people, they did. When they took over your courts, they controlled justice. With those courts, they sold protection. And that is the child traffickers. Those are your cartels. Those are corrupt industries, such as healthcare, such as pharmaceutical. I mean, they're in this pie too. They were protecting everything that harms you. They pay protection for to the same DOJ. If you take out the DOJ, you get your courts back, and then everything falls into place, which is why Flynn's so important. You back Flynn into the DOJ, into the insurrection plan. That's why they can't go at Flynn. Flynn's the master blackmailer, which is what's happening now. And Trump is somewhere that he's not telling us at all. And that bothers me.
Yeah.
Because if we're betting our life on it, then you want somebody that you trust to bet their life.
Right.
I'm not sure we're there. So we'll see. Listen, who gets arrested? If we don't audit the Senate, we got a problem. If you don't know who Flynn is and he keeps moving forward with it, I'm saying the DOJ is still working. It's still the insurrection plan. And don't be surprised if Flynn ain't running for president
Right.
sooner than later. And all they got to do is wait for Trump's weak moment. And that moment may be coming.
The
So
economy.
right. So and I knew this economy. Listen, we had reverse yield curves in 19. We knew we had inflation. The feds knew we had inflation. The last thing you do is print money. It was bullshit. It was all a lie hiding it. Now they're pumping this shit out of oil. Rates will go down because rates go down naturally in a recession. So in other words, they are going down, but they're going to go down for a reason. So everything else goes down, including employment. And then the housing values start going down because then you have fire sales. Listen, about being the wealthy people, they're not taking the money off the top. They turned around and just took a haircut. They could use a haircut. But this was important. This was not done for without a purpose or reason. And I'm telling you, it's because we're in dire stress financially. That's where we are. Okay, Qrash.
Okay.
So let's see. Monday going to be an interesting day. We jumped ahead with this one, wondering about. So you may actually hear a Monday program before you hear this, just in case something hits the fan.
We're recording this Sunday, but we're not going to put it out yet. So we're waiting to see what happens with the market.
Okay. All right, Qrash. Talk to you.
Bye.